Mr. Petrick looked up and placed his hands on his waist.
Zach, how did you get up there?
Lewa sat 30 feet above the ground on a branch. He looked down and shrugged.
I climbed.
Well, get down here. We're gonna have a huddle.
Lewa climbed his way down and sat near the campfire next to Mackenzie. Janet walked up and scooted herself close to him. Mark stood behind him and began recording the event with his camera. BJ took center stage and clasped his hands together.
Alright everyone, it has come to my attention that we adults can't always be here to keep an eye on things. So after talking with Eric and Mr. Petrick, we are going to prepare you to take care of yourselves until we have dealt with these Toa and their people.
Lewa gulped.
Starting today, Eric will teach you the basics in first aid. Tomorrow, you'll be firing a gun. Any questions?
Lewa slowly raised his hand.
What will we do once we do all of this?
Nothing, really. This is to prepare you for a worst-case scenario.
Oh,
Lewa's head sunk into his shoulders. Eric then took the stage.
Alright, so who's familiar with the ABCs of CPR?
Some of the older teens raised their hands.
Great. So for those of you who don't, these are the basic medical procedures that can save you from suffocation and heart attack. Can I have someone volunteer to be a dummy?
I nominate Sarah.
Ha, ha, Sarah barked sarcastically.
From what I see, you need it most.
Enough. Mackenzie, would you please?
Mackenzie nodded and stepped forward.
Now, she's going to lay down, and you each are going to take turns doing the ABCs. What you'll do is place your hands together like this, place the palms right below the ribs, and push down a few times. Then you'll take a gasp of air and force it down her throat. But for the sake of dignity, you won't do the kiss of life.
Some of the kids laughed,
Darn it! I would have volunteered if we did that.
said Janet as he looked at Zach. From inside the tent, Sarah rolled her eyes.
Alright, so who's going first? Caitlin?
Caitlin stepped forward and practiced on Mackenzie.
Good.
Ashley, Kyle, and the kids took turns practicing. Soon Lewa was up. He did as Eric instructed and pushed down 2 times before Mackenzie yelled and shot herself up.
Ow! Careful! You're pretty strong for a skinny guy.
It took a moment before Lewa realized he still retained his strength.
sorry. I'll be a little more gentle next time.
Mark tilted his head to the side with intrigue. Eric stepped in and clasped his hands.
Okay, let's move on to CPRs.
Lewa walked in his tent with a plate of spaghetti in each hand. Sarah looked up and stared at him.
Thanks, but I'm not hungry.
How can you not? I haven't seen you eat since I've gotten here.
Stubbornly, Sarah sat herself up and placed her legs over her bed. Lewa handed her a plate and sat down on the opposite side. As he ate, he observed Sarah moving very stiffly, occasionally clenching her teeth. His smile went away.
Does it still hurt?
Sarah nodded as she took a bite. She swallowed, then spoke.
Sometimes it throbs and burns, and other times it just burns.
There was a long period of silence between them.
So tomorrow we're going to start shooting. Problem is, I don't know how to use a gun.
Sarah stared at him for a moment before talking. No problem. BJ will help you with that.
Yeah, well, in case you didn't know, he's not too fond of me. In fact, I don't think anyone here is.
There's Janet.
I meant amongst the older people. I can't seem to gain their trust or their respect.
Sarah wiped her mouth and put her plate to the side.
They're a little overprotective, especially with these Toa around.
Lewa stiffened up.
Anyway, thanks for the meal.
Lewa took the plates out into a tub of water, where Mackenzie and Caitlin were washing dishes.
Hey Zach, we could use some more firewood before it gets too dark.
Lewa nodded.
No problem.
He left the campsite and ventured into the woods. By the time he gathered an armful, he heard a familiar voice call out to him.
Lewa?
Lewa spun around and saw his brother with an armful of wood as well.
How goes it?
So good. Still don't know what they're thought planning, but I do know this. Whatever it is, they want someone there recording it for their history.
Kohata had a long look on his face.
And this is pretty big.
Yeah,
Then you better hurry up on this.
He then handed Liwa the firewood and smiled.
Oh, and this.
When Liwa awoke, he found himself as a Toa. He quickly buried himself in his sleeping bag and changed back into a human. When he came out of his tent, it was early morning and hardly anyone was up. Those who were up seemed interested in what was going on inside a tent on the opposite end of camp. Liwa approached them and observed the startled and gloomed looks on their faces.
What's going on?
BJ turned and faced him.
Stephanie is dead.
Liwa was blown back by the news.
What? How?
That's what Eric is trying to figure out.
BJ then placed his hands on his waist and shifted his weight.
Hate to tell the rest of the group about this.
He said more to himself than Liwa. Liwa returned back to his tent with sunken shoulders. Inside, Sarah and Mark were still asleep. He sat down and rested his arms on his knees. Even though he had only known these humans for a few days, he couldn't help but feel sorry for Stephanie. Seconds later, his eyes widened as he realized he had become attached to the humans. Fighting the humans as a Toa was now going to be harder for him. That would not bode well for his brothers. However, he couldn't leave yet. He had to know what they were planning. Sarah then stirred around. Liwa broke his thoughts and looked at her. When Sarah opened her eyes, she noticed the long expression.
Something wrong?
For several seconds, Liwa didn't know what to say.
It's Stephanie. She's gone.
Why did she leave?
No, not that kind of gone. Gone.
Sarah's face contorted into a serious stare.
What?
I don't know how. Just thought you should know.
Liwa then stood up and left the tent. Liwa jumped in surprise and covered his ears as gunshots rang out.
That was good. Janet, it's your turn.
She held the pistol out and waited. When she fired, the gun kicked up and back. She screamed and almost dropped the gun.
Yeah, it can be a little tricky to get used to that.
He then looked over.
Zach, are you going to fire that or not?
Liwa looked at the AR-15 rifle in his hands.
Are you sure about this?
Yes. Now hold it firmly and pull the trigger.
Liwa used the sights on the gun and aimed at a tin can 20 yards away. He pulled the trigger and felt the recoil. The combination of its force and the sound it made was more than enough to make him jump in surprise.
You missed. Try again.
Liwa pulled the trigger and this time knocked the can off the boulder. He smiled at his success, while some of the students cheered. BJ placed a hand on his shoulder.
Good. That's it for today.
Liwa handed his gun to Mark, who glared at him as he left. The group made their way off the rocky slope and back into the forest. BJ started out leading the group, but slowly made his way farther back towards Liwa.
Hey, about the last few days. I know we've been a little rough on you, but please understand, we're under a lot of stress right now.
Yeah, I kind of noticed.
But just know that we do appreciate what you're trying to do for Sarah. But Eric is our medical expert. He has her taken care of.
BJ paused.
We're going to do several more scouting trips and gather an arsenal.
We're going to attack the Toa?
Not quite. We're going to take care of a few things first. Once we're secure, then we'll deal with the Toa.
When they reached camp, Eric was leaned up against a tree, waiting.
Can I have a word with you?
The pilot followed him several yards away from the camp.
What's going on?
Stephanie suffocated.
BJ's eyes went wide.
Someone murdered her?
Not sure. Medically speaking, she has no history of breathing problems. However, evidence on her body says she died of a lack of air, but there's no bruising around her neck.
A freak incident, perhaps?
I'm not ruling anything out at this point.
What do we tell the others?
Nothing. The last thing we want is for everyone to start pointing fingers at each other.
BJ was silent for a moment.
You're right. We'll rule this an accident for now. But if something changes, I'm getting to the bottom of it.
Eric nodded and they both walked back to camp. The medic found Liwa playing a round of soccer.
Hey, Zach.
After kicking a ball to Caitlin, he turned around and approached Eric.
Yesterday I found some of your homemade ointment and put it on Sarah's leg. There's already significant improvement. As embarrassing as it is for me to ask, could you show me how to make some of it?
Liwa was surprised. He didn't want to admit, however, that yesterday Sarah had told him about it and he used some of his healing powers on the same leg while she was asleep.
Yeah, sure.
Before they could start on it, Ethan called out.
All right, everyone. Supper's ready.
Lewa frowned. He wasn't sure what strange food he was going to eat this time. Ethan scooped up a spoonful and poured it into Lewa's bowl. Lewa stared curiously at the strange plants inside. Mark took a bite.
Not bad. What's in it?
Oh, just the usual. Carrots, potatoes, secret blend of spices, and that weird eel-looking thing we keep hunting.
Mark gave him a stumped look.
Wait, you know those with the spikes on their backs and their heads to split open?
That's the one.
Lewa froze right as he was about to take a bite. He realized he was going to eat a karada.
Why would you eat one of these?
Ethan looked at him as if he was crazy.
'Cause it's good for ya. Now eat up.
Lewa looked at his dish again. Would a dead and cooked karada infect him and expose his secret? He didn't want to take the chance.
I just remembered. I'm not that hungry.
Oh, come on. Don't tell me you're vegetarian.
Actually, I am. But I'm sure Sarah would like some.
He rushed past Mark and went into his tent. Mark had been staring at his dish for over a minute. He wasn't pleased to be eating the creature, but he kept eating anyway.
So, how is it?
It's pretty good, shrugged Sarah. I don't know what kind of meat they used, but it's a little tough.
I don't think you want to know.
Sarah placed the bowl down.
I know I don't say this often enough, but thanks for what you're trying to do.
It's nothing.
So, how did the shooting practice go?
Lewa shrugged.
It was all right. I was a little nervous around the gun.
I was nervous when I first used the gun. Of course, when you see a bunch of women try to use it, it gets pretty entertaining.
It kind of was.
There was a long, awkward silence between them until Lewa spoke again.
You know, I don't think I got to know you personally.
Sarah almost blushed. Oh, well, I'm from Oregon. I enjoy going out on adventures, whether it's hiking, skiing, or rafting. Just don't ask me to climb or to rappel. Oh, and I have 3 younger brothers and a sister. What about you? Lewa's mind almost went blank.
Let's see here. I hate water. I have 6 brothers and sisters that I love to joke around with. And where I'm from, we love to sing and dance and party all day.
Sarah smiled. Sounds like you have a lot of fun at your place.
Yeah, we do.
Suddenly, Mark entered.
You two should join the others. They're making s'mores or something like that.
Sarah looked at herself. You know, it's about time I get out of this tent. She put on a yellow shirt with the gray and white diamond pattern running down the side. Stiffly, she stepped out, with Lewa right behind. The kids, along with Takara, Mr. Petrick, and BJ, were around the campfire roasting marshmallows. BJ was the first to notice Sarah.
Shouldn't you still be in bed?
Sarah shrugged. A little fresh air won't hurt. Slowly, she sat down. Lewa sat next to her and found Janet scooting herself over to him. She handed him a stick with a marshmallow on it. It was already roasted, and he took a bite at it. Its soft, warm, and gooey texture proved to be the worst thing he's ever felt in his mouth, regardless of how good it tasted. What made it worse was that it was sticking to the roof of his mouth. Janet smirked and handed him crackers and a chocolate bar. He tasted them individually and then stacked them the way he observed everyone else doing it. The combination of soft, smooth, and crunchy textures and their flavors was a surreal experience for Lewa. The next thing he knew, the teens began telling each other stories of past camping experiences. Lewa had to fake a laugh to fit in with everyone else laughing. He then decided to share his own story, a jowler backriding an ash bear. He was careful enough to make sure they had no hint of jowler being a Matoran. Sarah would occasionally try to add something to the conversation, but someone would interrupt her mid-sentence and babble on about what memory her words sparked up. Soon she got tired of it and stood up. Well, I'm going to bed.
Alright, good night.
Everyone else bid her good night as she lumbered back inside her tent. Mark was still awake, reviewing the camera footage. You know, we don't have a way to recharge those, right?
Yes. But with several batteries, I expect this to be over relatively soon.
I doubt it, Sarah said to herself. Mark then looked up at her.
So what do you think of Zack?
Sarah shrugged. He's pretty nice.
Sure gets along with everyone.
That's what bothers me.
She looked at Mark with surprise.
I don't trust him, and you shouldn't either. He's too nice. A little nosy.
Maybe he's just socially awkward. Sarah rolled into bed. Well, good night. Mark said nothing and stared back at the footage. With BJ and the adults taking turns keeping watch, Lewa struggled to find a way to sneak out of camp. After an hour waiting and laying in bed, his eyes became heavy and he drifted to sleep.
Psst, Lewa.
Lewa stirred around. The stranger whispered louder.
Lewa.
Lewa opened his eyes. Dawn was breaking and Tahu was at the tent door staring down at him. His eyes shot wide open and he scrambled up.
Tahu, get up before somebody spots you.
Tahu raised a brow. The Toa bear looked at himself and found he was a Toa again.
The guard is sleeping pretty soundly, so long as we leave quietly.
Soundlessly, the two Toa left the camp, and when they were a good distance away, Tahu stopped and turned around with crossed arms.
Tell me you've learned something.
Lewa could sense the impatience in his tone. He rubbed the back of his neck.
Quite a bit, really, but I still don't completely understand what it is they're thought planning.
Tahu was about to rub his forehead.
But they are gathering resources and have been preparing the younger ones.
The news did nothing to change the look on Tahu's face.
On the upside, I'm starting to gain their friend trust. I might be able to influence them into unwittingly setting themselves up for a quick trap.
You're asking for more time.
Yes, I know, but I just need another day or two. I'll try to talk them into going through Kininui, and we'll have them in our hands.
Lewa was not sounding confident, and Tahu picked up on it.
Brother, are you getting attached to them?
Lewa's fake smile disappeared.
Well, not exactly.
Tahu sighed.
It's not what you think. It's just this one human who I've been trying to connect with. I'm just using her to learn a little extra about them. She's actually been quite a bit of help. All I have to do now is talk her into handing Kabaka's sword over to me.
Tahu stared flatly at him.
They have his swords?
Well, just one of them. I thought you already knew.
Tahu crossed his arms again.
I know now.
Just then they heard a twig snap, and they both froze. Both Toa looked around, but after a minute saw nobody. Tahu faced Lewa.
Just be careful.
He then began to walk away.
I'll be sending Bahatu and Anua to keep a close watch on you.
As he left, Lewa took a deep sigh of relief and began walking back to camp. As he was about to reach the trail, he stopped and saw Sarah leaving camp with a backpack full of gear and Kapaka's sword. He quickly changed back into a human and rushed through the woods, gathering the materials needed for Sarah's medicine. He then grabbed his backpack and ran after her. It might be his only chance at getting the sword. To be continued.